That's right.
Tony, great to chat with you again, and Venky, thanks for taking the time. It's been a great day and learning a little more about DataRobot. Tell us who you are.
Great. I'm Venky Veeraraghavan. I'm the Chief Product Officer for DataRobot, which is a leading AI company for doing machine learning platforms. And so that's what we do.
Now, if I'm a customer, so I might be an SAP customer, I might not be an SAP customer, but I'm coming into this conversation around data. Why DataRobot? Like, what is that top line problem that you're solving with regards to data?
So as a sort of machine learning platform, the key thing that we provide is the ability for customers to get more value out of their data and to sort of take and build AI models and then realize value from the AI model. So it can be, sort of insights at the human scale, or it could be sort of deployed in a machine learning sort of a mission critical application for sort of at scale realization of value. But the idea is that we sort of take data, we extract value from in terms of using a model, and then sort of deliver it to a business user.
That's great.
So why are you working with SAP?
Yes. So much of the world's most valuable data is in SAP. And normally what we do, when we have a lot of customers where they have SAP and they have us, but we don't, without this integration, what we used to do is get that data into a data warehouse, someone else is doing the ETL, getting that loading up there. And the fact of the matter is, like, when they do that, they're doing it for other reasons. They're not necessarily doing it for machine learning. And so when we as machine learning, when we look at data science, we say, look, we want all the data. We want to understand what it means, not just cleaned up data that's sort of put in a data warehouse for some analytical purposes or something else like that, and say, here's what we can do with it. And so what we are looking forward to in this partnership is being able to get the ground truth from the source of truth and all of it. And so the idea is, when you connect to the SAP Datasphere, you're able to look at all the data, you're able to look at what it means, and then using our technology in DataRobot, we can figure out where the signal is. We can say, I want to look at all of this work. There's some set of signals that might have been cleaned out before because it's not necessarily interesting for analytical purposes. So we want to get signal, and we also throw out the stuff we don't like. So the idea is that this is an amazing way to sort of get great model performance, which in turn will have to drive business performance, which is the second part, which is now we talk about production. You take this model, you might write a notebook, traditionally as a data scientist, show a little nice lift chart and say, like, look, I can give you 2% improvement. But you can only get the 2% improvement when it's actually integrated with your business process, which is back to your application and your business systems. That's why sort of taking the model and pushing it back into SAP, into the workflow, into the application, makes it super easy and also critical to sort of gain the value, sort of realize the value, as opposed to sort of the paper value that's sitting in a chart.
This sounds very magical in the way that it works. I feel like that could be a marketing tagline.
That could be the thing for AI, machine learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do think, in reality, there's a question around how do I capitalize on this intelligence, right? And use it in the smartest of ways, right? It's not just, as much as we want it to be magical, the reality is something very different, right? And so how should I be thinking about that and kind of walking down that path so that I'm capitalizing on the most important pieces and not getting sucked into a corner that really isn't going to provide significant value? Maybe that 2%, okay, it's 2%, but it's not, it's 2% of, 0.5% of 0.2%.
Yeah, I think, first of all, there is no magic. It's all math. That's the first thing. There's no magic. But I think, the industry in general has done a great disservice by saying...
So this is I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is a good thing to say, kids stay in school, math is important.
Exactly.
Math is important.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's absolutely important. But what is important is being able to sort of take the... sort of like, it's not magic, but then what is it? The idea is that what you're doing in data science is actually sort of understanding from the data what is useful for the business performance. And normally, you talked about these 2% 2%, 1% of 1%, it's because we sort of end up just focusing on model performance as opposed to business performance. So I think that the really important part of this conversation is how do you enable data scientists to work really closely with the business owners to say, where is the business problem and how do I find the right machine learning problem to solve it, right?
But that might actually come out of multiple parts of my organization.
That's right.
How do I ensure that I'm going after the right part of my organization to capitalize on the biggest bang for the buck?
Yeah, I think that's sort of that's not necessarily a machine learning platform problem, but it is sort of a cultural thing with machine learning. So I think, what we've seen in most customers is we really help our customers sort of brainstorm, hey, where do you think there are, where is the list of business problems that you have, and where is, given our knowledge, where are the places where you're likely to sort of get benefit? And so I always talk about the customer churn problem because almost every customer wants to reduce churn.
Sure.
Some of them already have solutions, which basically is great. Some people don't have solutions. They want to sort of interesting. So I think there's I think what we'd love to do is to have customers sort of do a land and expand sort of motion. And so the more AI mature you're getting, the more number of scenarios and use cases that you have in your backlog. You have a system by which you can sort of work through it. You have the data systems to support it. But when you have to start somewhere. And so I think the idea is that we actually have a whole service package to actually say, can we brainstorm with you? Can we do a hackathon to actually figure out where is the right mix of people and process and data to actually figure out where the where is a good place to sort of start on a machine learning project.
Right. I want to go back to something what you just said, and that also touches on Tim, what you were asking, which is that traditionally, when you look at the data science side and machine learning, traditionally you've had data scientists and they've worked in their own silo and they have their own context of we're trying to find the signal and see what and tap onto that and see if we're basically answering the right question, doing the right predictive, is the data proper. But they're working within their own context. Then you have the business side,
That's right.
which has the problem. It's not just customer churn, but it's customer churn for a specific
Cohort,
category of SKUs
That's
or in a
right.
specific region. I think what I get kind of excited about in terms of how you folks would work with SAP is a matter of basically bringing the context together for both sides. If we can simplify it to say business side and data scientist side, I'm sure it's more complicated than that. So in terms of how you work together, I want to ask this question in two parts. One is how you work together with SAP on the solution side to basically bring the context both ways. And then in terms, from a process standpoint, from a people standpoint, how do you need to change the mindset? So I'd like to take that in two parts.
Great. First, I'll say we're early in the integration and sort of the partnership.
But where do you hope to take this?
But where do I want to take it? So I think on question number one. So what we really want to make sure is the business side sort of has a clear understanding of the problem, right? And the problem is not just customer churn; it's very specific, right? And as I mentioned in the demo before, it's not just sort of like predicting churn on the day of renewal. Right, and so one of the most important things that will help data scientists is how do you sort of iterate over these multiple, what we call problem framings, which is there's a business problem, but there's multiple ML problems, right? Which is, hey, predict churn on the day of renewal, predict churn 7 days before, 30 days before, 90 days before, 180 days before, for which cohort, by which geography, by which SKU, right? And so the idea is that you're trying to figure out where is the interesting business performance. Just because you can make a highly accurate model, it may not be worth it to you. And some of the reasons why sort of machine learning projects fail, even though they are they're correct, but they're failing, is because they're solving a problem that's not worth the change.
The surgery was successful, but the patient died.
That's right, exactly. And so that's what I was looking for. The idea is that you can't just simply say, I had this super accurate model,
right.
And then you find out the business performance, it gives me 0.5% of 0.5%.
Yeah.
But you might say, like, hey, look, what's with this SKU set in this geography, if I can predict 180 days, even though it's much lower performance, maybe it's 80% or 60% accurate. But man, if I can go intervene on that front and get this thing, I can make millions of dollars. Now, no data scientist will know that because intrinsically they don't know it. So it's super important they work with the data and the business owner to work on that. That's why it's so important to sort of figure out what's the backlog, be clear on what the business problem is, and then you go hunting. And that's why it's called experimentation. It's a term of art in machine learning, because you don't know, it's not you're writing one program, right? You're trying to figure out how to find this problem and how do you sort of, what is the right machine learning problem to solve? This bigger business problem. And for us, SAP is a great partner because all they have is business data, right? And they have applications that actually can use that business data right away. So if you're doing supply chain, you want to do forecasting. If you're doing finance, you're doing forecasting. If you're doing CRM, you're doing churn analysis. So there's just all these great use cases, and there's surfaces where you can take this insight and push it back into the application so you can actually make meaningful change to the company.
One of the things, Tony, that we've been talking a lot in the last couple of days has been around context.
Oh gosh, yes.
And culture. And I think one of the things, Venky, that you're bringing up here very starkly is you have to think about that context. Like data science and thinking about data just broadly has to have the business context.
Absolutely.
And it seems like without that, they're just bits on a page.
Right. It's just a math chart. That's right.
It's just a math chart. That's right. Stay in school.
That's right.
I do wonder, how when you go into an engagement, you've got a prospect, you've got a new customer that is thinking about engaging with DataRobot. What are some of the things that you look at beyond the technology to help guide them to be successful and how they proceed down this data journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, it's one of the things that I think we are quite proud of some of the work we do there. One of the things we have is very early in the prospecting stage, we have this thing called proof of value. If you think about a software project, it's often called proof of concept, which is like, can I string these two together? Can I get a demo together? We have the version of proof of value, right? And so we go in there with some of our data scientists or with our partners, and we say, hey, look, what's the business problem you're trying to solve, right? Let's pre-sales. Let's go figure out where is the sort of issues that we might be able to solve for you. And so we actually show the customer direct business value before we even sell. Right? And so the idea is that once you have this proof of value, that becomes a checkpoint for us to say, great, there is a business. We can show that ML is making progress and it's going to have value. And then we move to the other stuff like
But
infrastructure and
but how do you know that without knowing their business? So company XYZ comes to the table, make the phone call and say, hey, I want to have a conversation, want to take a look at it. So you haven't had the chance to have that deep conversation to understand kind of what makes their company work.
Yeah, I don't know all the mechanics. I'm not in the sales side, but having said that, I think what we always find is when they go through that process, they do find a set of business owners and the data science person. And so what we've been really successful at is as a organization that's been doing that for many, many customers. We say, hey, look, have you thought about this problem, this problem, this problem? Because we have this thousands of customers that we've sort of worked with and use cases, and we say, these are common places where you can get value. And so they're like, oh, look, I have this problem. And so then we say, let's talk to the business person and let's talk to the data science team, because we try to target the data science team. But we feel like if we just do data science and it becomes speeds and feeds, we don't think we are going to be successful, and we don't think the customer is going to be successful just by talking about the platform. And so we really try to figure out where, what is the what I say is secondary persona, which is like, who is the business owner that would like this sort of ML to solve for them, and then we bridge the gap. And so then we have a sort of a hackathon, or we do a sort of a proof of value work to actually sort of really say, look, using this technology, it solves this problem.
It almost seems like the starting point is we do a little bit of matchmaking between the business owner and the data scientist, right? Oh, and by the way, we have this product that does amazing things too, that will help you provide value.
Right. I mean, let's put it this way, which is that if you were to basically take this down the road, say a year, because you were outlining some fairly ambitious goals, and you're going through with some of your early, your first, let's say like your first initial, joint customers.
Yeah.
Where would you like to see them be a year from now, if you're starting with them now?
That's a great question. I think what we'd love to see is sort of the joint solution really being done with sort of gets the benefit of both sides of the classical ML problem, which is the data scientists want agility, they want data, they want to sort of experiment. So we want to give them this sort of fast inner loop. We want to allow for that. But then we also want this thing to say, okay, now it also works in a production grade, fully governed sort of system, and we have sort of taken between the two companies, built the right product. So all that is just sort of taken for granted. We want to sort of raise the bar, right? And so that way it's not just this do-it-yourself project. Let's just sort of say, I'm going to get my notebook, I'm going to get my GPU, I'm going to get my, I'm going to wrangle data, and I'm going to argue with people to get data. we put it all together, then I have this notebook with a machine learning model. Great. Now I'm going to have another argument and another sort of set of discussions around, oh, how do I fund this SAP project to sort of put it back into where it matters? Or then you say, oh, I put it in a dashboard that's outside the business process, and it's very clever, but actually doesn't provide value because no one's looking at the dashboard. And so the idea is that these hard problems are what we want to sort of solve for, so that the company is really focused on their business and the data science is focused on their ML.
I just wanted on my side, with just geeking out a little bit, which is I think one of the most interesting potential things from your partnership, which we discussed in the session, is how you will maintain the context, how you maintain the traceability when it's in the SAP environment.
That's right.
How far along do you hope to be on that within the year? Because that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, no, I think getting the deployment right, making it run smoothly, with the right sort of security boundaries, being able to sort of go back and forth across multiple clouds. There's a bunch of product work to do, but I think from a I would say it's engineering work. We know how to do the work. We just have to do the work. Sure. And so what we're really hoping for in this partnership announcement is really to sort of say, look, let's engage with customers, see what are the moving parts and what are the parts that they want to say fix. Because I think conceptually we think it's very sound. But now the question is, should we run it in a VPC? Should we run it on a single tenant cloud? Should we run a multi-tenant cloud? There's a number of those kind of issues. So I'm hoping that in a year from now that I'll say look, we talked to dozens of customers. We got this feedback. We've now hardened that in as core product offerings. Right. That sort of can just work out of the box, so to speak.
As we kind of wrap, one of the things that I would love to get your perspective on is, 2023 is a challenging year for companies. There's one thing to be able to say, in a vacuum, looking at data, understanding your data is really important to do. 2023 brings a few other challenges to the table. How is that, from your perspective, how is that going to impact companies through 2023, but then beyond? What are some of the steps that they need to do, that they should do? Yeah. And feel free to be provocative. Sure. Tony and I are both a little bit known to do that.
Yeah. We can take it.
That's great. I would say, I think the challenging year is in many ways a good thing, because it's sort of, you have to sort of say, look, I made all these investments, what are the most valuable investments? Am I getting the value from it? And so it sort of separates the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. Yeah. And so, the thing I would say is I think the business and companies should expect a lot more from data science. They should expect real value, and they ought to sort of say, it's not just this exotic sort of profession that sort of works on the side. It is core to the business. And so I would challenge our customers, I challenge everyone to say, look, expect more. Why isn't it giving value? What are the problems? Build on platforms, don't have to do it all yourself, and then use that to say, look, there is huge value to be extracted, but you got to focus on that part, not on I'm building a data science platform and I'm trying to pull it all together. It's kind of exciting, but it's not the useful part. The useful part is actually how do you apply the ML to the business.
Very interesting. Venky, great chatting with you today.
Very nice talking to you too.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you again, Tony.
My pleasure as always.